President Trump is ending the year with a focus on foreign policy, and to some in his political base, it's a betrayal of his promise to put America first. Today, Trump will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his private resort in South Florida. Over the weekend, he welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In response, Trump's one-time ally turned critic, Marjorie Taylor Greene, posed a question. Can we just do America? Joining us to discuss, Brett Samuels, White House reporter here at The Hill. Hey, Brett, is the White House concerned about this criticism from some in the MAGA base that the president is focusing too much on foreign policy?
Yeah, Drew, I don't think the White House, as of yet, is too concerned that the base is ready to abandon President Trump or anything like that. They certainly feel like, President Trump, what he's doing is justified, that, they certainly make the argument that by taking these actions on foreign policy and on the world stage, that is benefiting America domestically. So certainly the White House has kind of shrugged off this idea that he's focusing too much on foreign policy. As we head into 2026, obviously that's a midterm year where the economy tends to dominate and be sort of the central issue for a lot of voters. We may see something of a pivot there, but for now, certainly I think the White House feels comfortable sort of defending just how much President Trump is really dedicating his time and energy to foreign policy.
We've heard a lot from Marjorie Taylor Greene on this issue, but she is in some ways an outlier. How widespread is the feeling that Trump, among the base of the Republican Party, that the president is focusing too much on foreign policy?
Yeah, I think as far as publicly, Marjorie Taylor Greene is an outlier. She's one of the few Republicans and Trump supporters who are willing to kind of say out loud that they feel like the president is focusing too much on foreign policy, that he needs to focus on domestic issues. Certainly on the public stage, I think Republicans are largely falling in line here. I think that could change certainly if we see an escalation of any kind. For example, if President Trump announces that the U.S. is somehow getting involved in a conflict with Venezuela, that could certainly spur more criticism from Republicans, from members of the MAGA base who don't want to see the U.S. involved in some kind of long-term conflict. But for now, it's really just kind of Marjorie Taylor Greene and folks like Rand Paul, who have always had concerns about, expansion of war powers and the U.S. sort of meddling in foreign affairs.
You mentioned what's going on in Venezuela. There's also this issue of the ceasefire in Gaza, Trump's attempts to end the war in Ukraine. Those issues aren't going anywhere in the new year. It might be difficult for him to pivot away from foreign policy considering that.
Yeah, that's a great point. This idea that especially when it comes to things like Venezuela, where Trump has really sort of on his own terms really escalated the tensions with Venezuela. The military has repositioned assets in the region there. There's been these strikes on drug boats. This is something that Trump has sort of, it's been his own doing. So it would certainly be an odd move and a difficult move to just sort of abruptly abandon that and pivot away. Obviously, the war in Ukraine, that's something Trump has sunk a lot of time and energy into and has sort of tasked top folks from his administration with trying to find a solution to end the war there. So that's another one where it would be surprising and a bit odd and sort of ripe for criticism if after a year Trump just kind of wipes his hands and says he's done. It's a great point, Drew, that I think these are issues Trump has already certainly put a lot of time, energy, resources into, and it would be difficult for him at this point to pivot away without some kind of clear end game.
One of the ways that the president tries to show that he's engaged on these domestic issues is by holding these rallies out around the country. Had some in the last several months. Do you expect in the new year holding those type of rallies can be used to pitch the president's domestic accomplishments?
Yeah, I think that is the idea, certainly coming from the White House, is that what we saw the last couple of weeks in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, these rally type events in traditional battleground states, that we're going to see more of that in 2026. Certainly the expectation is that they would focus on the economy, that we'll see the president go out and kind of pitch what is going to go into effect in 2026, particularly when it comes to that big, beautiful bill that he signed into law in July, which contained various provisions around extending tax cuts, around no tax on tips or overtime. The expectation is we'll see him hold more events that really focus on those and drive those ideas home. Of course, the flip side is with Trump, There's always the question of, whether he stays on script, whether he says something that overshadows sort of the purpose of the event and gains more news coverage. But the argument is that the most precious resource is the president's time, and by using it to go to these battleground states to hold these events, that's a way the White House can show that they're focused on these issues.
Yeah, at times the president can muddle the message when it comes to the economy. He is inclined to say that this whole affordability issue is actually a Democratic hoax.
Yeah, that was sort of the big storyline out of that first event in Pennsylvania in particular, was billed as this event where Trump is hitting the road to talk about how he's working to lower prices. And then he just totally undercut it by calling it a Democratic hoax. He's called it a con job. So, that is always the question with Trump is, does he kind of step on his own message? Obviously, an issue like the economy, where we've seen this before with the Biden administration, where maybe the numbers say, the statistics say that the economy is strong, that it's trending in the right direction, but people don't feel that. And Trump is obviously somebody who has traditionally struggled to kind of empathize with people who aren't always feeling the benefits of his policies. So that'll be a big test for him in 2026, I think, whether he can adjust that message a bit, and stay on that message in a way that Republicans would like him to.
All right, we will leave it at that. Brett Samuels, White House reporter here at The Hill. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Drew.